right, what's up, everybody? You guys doing good? Yeah! I'm glad that one person's doing good. You guys doing good? Thank you, man. Hey, my name is Tim. I feel like I haven't been up here to talk to you guys in like a year and a half, so thank you guys so much for bearing with Matt as he's had to talk to you guys, and that's been rough for you guys, I know, but I'm back, don't worry, so you guys don't worry about that. So, hey, we've been in this series called Mine, and it's a great series about talking about making faith your own. And when Matt and I were talking about these series, and as we kind of walked through them, this is one that we kind of decided, I don't know if we could really teach this series to anybody younger than you guys. I think this is one of those series it takes a mature mind to grasp, and it takes someone going, you know what, I want to get serious about faith. I don't want faith to just be my parents' faith. I don't want faith to just be because my friend invited me. I want faith to be mine. And so I want to just, by head nods or by maybe an audible yes from you guys, are you guys willing to dive a little bit deeper tonight? You guys good? 1, 2, 3, yes? Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to pray for us because I like to pray before we start. And let me ask God to be the words in my mouth, that they wouldn't be mine. God, thank you for this night. Jesus, I want to thank you for every one of these students. Jesus, I just want to thank you even for the blessing of not having them go on Thanksgiving vacations yet so that they could be here tonight. God, I want to pray that tonight as we take a minute just to dive into something more about who you are and what it means to make faith our own. Jesus, would you move in power, God? Would you move in a way would you change someone's life tonight? Even if it's their first time or maybe it's their 100th time, God, would you move in their lives in a powerful way tonight? Would there be life change tonight? Because your words, not mine, speak through me, God. This is my prayer. Amen. Now, Andrew was on top of the world. He lived in 0 BC. That's the year that Jesus was born. But Andrew was on top of the world. The dust was swirling around him. It was hot on this day, but nothing could stop him from smiling. Because a couple weeks before this point, Andrew had been fishing with his best buddy, his best buddy, Peter, my bad. And he and Peter were next door neighbors, and what they do every single night, they'd go through the day of their house chores and stuff like that, and every night they'd go into their garages, they'd pull out this net, and it was always set above the floor, it was always well kept, it was always oiled, because this net was the thing that made them their money, it was the thing that made them their livelihood. And so Andrew and Peter would go grab their nets, they would walk down to the sea by their house, they would get into a boat late at night, and they would set sail, and they would spend all night fishing. They would take these nets, they'd cast them into the water, they would hope to get something out of the water that night. There were some of the providers for their family, which meant if they had a good catch, they could go in a little bit early, get somewhere shut-eye before the next day started. But if they didn't get anything, they'd be out all night long, hauling nets and throwing them back out, hauling them in, just so that they could go back home and hopefully have a non-meager week. Now, fishermen back in that day were not necessarily the highest class people you could probably imagine. These were a little bit lower than middle class in their society. And so Andrew was kind of stuck in this lifestyle. He would have been a teenager about your age at this point. And by that point in their society, they were kind of stuck in their jobs. They were doing what they were doing for the rest of their lives. And one night, it was about midnight, and Peter looks at Andrew and says, "Hey, did you hear about the rabbi that's coming through?" And Andrew just went, "Rabbis, man." Because rabbis were kind of like the pop stars of that age. Rabbis were known because they studied the Hebrew Torah, that's like kind of the Hebrew Bible, and the scriptures from the Hebrew faith. And they would have studied that so much in growing up that they would have become an expert on the God that they served. And because they were such experts, they were held in such high esteem in their culture that they were kind of like the rock stars. And they'd always travel with a big posse of people called their disciples. If you were lucky enough to be a rabbi's disciple, that meant that you were kind of well-to-do, rich enough, farther enough along in your studies. You had to be kind of the next level thinker. And if you were a disciple, then you could walk with the rabbi through Israel as he taught Israel. And then what you would do is eventually you yourself would become a rabbi. It was like a fast track to success. And so as they're coming in that night, they've got their full load of fish. They're coming in at about 6 in the morning. It'd been a little bit of a hard night, but they finally had their boat full. And suddenly they see this man in this rabbi's garb. He's walking towards the water. In fact, this rabbi gets so close that he takes off his sandals and he actually steps into the water and he looks out at their boat. And what's weird about this rabbi, Andrew sees, is that there's nobody around this rabbi. There's nobody standing with him. There's not a massive crowd, but he's in the rabbi garb, right? And what ends up happening is this rabbi looks at him and says, "Hey, come on in." And that's a weird thing, y'all. That'd be like Justin Bieber coming up to you on the street and be like, "Hey, come over here real quick." You'd be like, "Me?" kind of thing. And that's kind of what they did. They did that double take, trying to see if there was anybody behind them before they said, "Me?" And he said, "Yeah, you, come on in." And they sail to the shore. They get out of their boat. And this man introduces himself as Jesus, has a short talk with them, and then he says just a few words. They still have their nets in hand. Remember, this is what their livelihood, this was their security. And this Jesus, this rabbi looks at them and he says just a couple words. He says, drop your net and follow me. Drop your nets and follow me. Now, if you guys have heard this story before, you may be like, okay, cool, then they end up following Jesus, right? Yeah, they do, but you guys have got to understand that for them to drop their nets, this was dropping everything that they knew. They knew nothing besides this net. And for them to go, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do that, that meant that they would have to put their livelihood aside. When Rabbi said, follow me, there wasn't a second chance. It was either you say yes now or you go. And so this Rabbi Jesus says, drop your nets, leave your boat, follow me. These guys, this Rabbi Jesus turns around and starts walking away as if they're going to follow him. And he doesn't know if they will. And what I love about Andrew and Peter is they look at each other, maybe have a short conversation, and they drop their nets on the ground, and they follow after Jesus. This would have meant leaving their whole life behind, and they follow after him. And guys, I'm not going to lie to you, I love their commitment. I love their commitment because, guys, I'm a guy that's really terrified of commitment. That's just to be honest. Does anybody have a struggle with like choosing what to eat for lunch? Just totally really gives you a mini panic attack? That's me. Like someone said, hey, Panda In-N-Out this week, and I was like, I don't know, just choose something, please. Like that was terrifying for me. Some of you guys are like, wait, too into commitment. Like, oh my God, she breathed out, maybe we should get married. You gotta watch out for that. But these guys had the right level of commitment, and they decided to step in to this walk with Jesus. And I love this story because it keeps on going, and we actually, in our scripture verses, we're going to find Andrew and Peter. And these guys that were just fishermen, nobodies from a nobody village. At one point, Andrew would have turned around, the dust that was kicking up behind him was from 15,000 people that had heard Jesus talk, that had watched him do his stuff, and they were like, this guy is someone that we need to follow and learn from. He speaks with authority, he speaks with power. I need to follow after this Jesus. And guys, as this crowd is going, you can imagine Andrew looks back and sees 15,000 people after he was just a fisherman, and it would be kind of like being in like LeBron James' first like high school basketball team. You'd roll deep together, you'd have that history. He was like part of the OG crew with Jesus. So in the very front of this crowd of these 12 people and one more, that's Jesus, but those 12 people were like Jesus' original posse, and he's like, wow, 15,000 people following the guy that I'm like the closest friends with. And then Jesus is about to teach them a lesson. We're going to dive in. You guys can read it up here with me, okay? And if you guys do have your phones, we do have an Eastlake Network app. You guys can follow along with your notes on that. It's also got the memory verses on there. You can download that on the App Store. But we're going to be in Matthew chapter 14, verses 13 through 21. Here's what it says. When Jesus heard what had happened, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. Hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot from the towns. This is crazy because you guys, here's what basically is happening in this verse, if you don't understand, is that Jesus is walking, there are 15,000 people following him. Jesus gets kind of tired and he's like, I need just a little bit of solitude. He jumps on a boat with these fishermen and they start to sail directly across the lake. And it says in the Bible that those crowds, those 15,000 people that were following him, met him on the other side. Y'all, the fastest way from point A to point B is with a straight line, and a boat is faster than walking when there's wind. So that means that these crowd would have had to run all the way around the lake to stay where Jesus was. And guys, if you want to write something down extra, I'm just going to give you a little free truth today. If you think that you're following Jesus, but your dedication isn't, I would follow him no matter what, I wonder if you've met Jesus tonight. Can I just say that out loud? There's something that Jesus does when you begin to truly follow him, that nothing would get in your way of following him like this crowd. This crowd saw something different. And so they went to follow him, and a faith that's mine says, I'm going to follow him no matter what happens. Let's keep going. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them because he's awesome, and he healed their sick. We can just gloss over that, but he looks at people, he's like, hey, you got leprosy, healed. You got a broken leg, healed. Whatever it is, you're ready to go, you're healed. That's what Jesus was doing. And then it keeps going. As evening approached, the disciples came to him and said, this is a remote place, and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go into the villages and find themselves some food. This was natural. They're like, dude, there's nothing around here, and they need to go eat. This is a ton of families. This isn't just men. This is 5,000 families here, Jesus. You need to send them off. Because, guys, I get panic attacks thinking about ordering pizza for 100 students. Imagine 15,000. That's what they're kind of saying right now. And here's what Jesus does. He's about to teach them a lesson. Jesus replied, they do not need to go away. You, Andrew, give them something to eat. And you can imagine Andrew's a little taken back by that point. He's like, Me give them something to eat? There's 15,000 of them, Jesus. And they say, what are we going to feed them with? And they said, we have here only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. We only have that. This is our lunch, Jesus. This is our dinner. This is all we've got for the night. We've got 5 loaves and 2 fish. Think about this, 13 people, 5 loaves of bread, 2 fish. That's not a lot of food. So that's not a lot that they have right there for the 13 of them to share. And then it keeps on going. They answered, this is going to be important. We're going to come back to this, but if you've got a paper Bible, like circle the heck out of this thing. Highlight this verse. It's a beautiful one. Verse 18. Bring them here to me, he said. And he directed the people to sit down on the grass. And taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and he broke the loaves. Then he gave them to the, can you read that next one? They gave them to the who? Let's say it one more time. They gave it to the who? Disciple. Oh, is it up there? Negative. It says he gave them, I'm sorry. We're here in verse number 19. Verse number 19. He gave them to the disciples. There you go. That's good. He gave them to the disciples. And the disciples gave them to the people. Now I want you to imagine being Andrew right now. Imagine being Andrew. You've just taken your net that was your security and your life force, and you dropped it on the ground and you followed Jesus, and then Jesus comes out and he hands you some bread. He hands you some bread, and he goes, listen, here's what you've got, Andrew. You've got 1 loaf of bread, and in fact, we're even going to break it in half, because for 13 people, we're going to have to break it quite a bit in half, actually. And so what ends up happening is, he breaks this thing in half, he gives this thing to Andrew. Andrew probably breaks it in half again and puts it in his bag and goes, all right, here we go. Now, I want you to imagine the awkward moment that ensues here, okay? Are you guys feeling what I'm feeling right now? I've got this much bread to hand to 100 students. Someone's going to get pissed at me, right? Come on, anybody here? So imagine that Andrew starts handing this thing out, right? How's it going? Can you say, let's get this bread? I'm just kidding. Here you go. Here you go. All right. May the Lord bless you and keep you. I don't know. And so as I start to go, I go, oh shoot, I'm giving out bread way too fast. I'm trying to look down this row and see who looks the most hungry, and it looks like Hannah. And so I'm getting a little bit nervous because I definitely need to save some for Hannah. But I get here, you look really nice, so I'm just going to give you a little bit. And then I get right here, and I don't really know you, so I'm going to give you a little bit more. But I know you, and so I'm going to give you like barely any at all because I'm like, we're homies. And then you, I'm like, okay, please don't hurt me. And then you right here, I'm like, she looks really nice, so I'm just going to give her the rest. And I back away, bro. I'm done. Now, I want you to imagine the awkwardness right here, that I know they're laughing at me, but inside they're pissed off because they're like, hey, we didn't get free bread. We stayed for the bread. Imagine as Andrew how awkward you would feel in that moment. Would anybody else feel terrifyingly awkward? You're like, oh shoot, I've run out of bread in front of someone that looks like they're going to murder me, right? Like I'm telling you. And so here's what ends up happening. So this is what, if I'm like Andrew, y'all, I'm freaking out. I'm freaking out because I'm like, I don't want to deal with that awkward, awful moment of getting to the person and then running out of food and being like, sorry, Jesus told me to. You guys can totally eat that, by the way. I didn't wash my hands for like 3 days, but good luck. Anyway, so, and so what ends up happening is that Andrew gets up there, he's got half of it in his bag, half of it in his hand, and he keeps going. And then he pulls the other half out of his bag, he keeps going down the row, and then all of a sudden he feels a weight in his bag. He feels a weight in the bag that he's carrying the bread in, and he pulls it in, and there's another loaf. He's like, oh, that's weird. I thought that I only broke that once, but okay, maybe I broke it twice. Keeps going. Then there's another weight in his bag. And he reaches in again and goes, oh, something's weird. Something's going on. And he keeps on handing out the bread. Aren't you glad that I don't do miracles in here? And he pulls out another one, and another one, and another one. And all the disciples are experiencing the same thing all at once. They're all experiencing the same thing at once, and it says this. They all ate, all the crowd, 15,000 people. It says 5,000 men here, but that's 5,000 families. That doesn't count women and children in that count. And so it says 15,000 people all ate and were, can you just read that word again? All ate and were satisfied, man, satisfied. Y'all, I know that you may not know me, and if you're in here and you don't know me, I'm Tim. But if you do know me, here's what I want you to know. From the bottom of my heart, I want to tell you something. That if you eat from Jesus' feast, you will be satisfied. It's not like a meal that you'll walk away from and still feel hungry. You know those meals where you don't get quite enough? It's like the worst feeling in the world. Like that dinner where you don't eat quite enough food, and you lay in bed and you're like, dang it, I'm a little bit hungry. I have to walk all the way downstairs and get some dang food. You know what I'm talking about, that feeling? That's an awful feeling, and I hate that. I love the feeling of when I go to Olive Garden and I stuff my face so full of breadsticks that I walk out and I feel like I'm a bowling ball. That's the kind of feeling that Jesus is talking about here. He says you can be satisfied. You can be satisfied. Here, let's keep on going. And the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. Y'all, here's another free truth. When you step out and serve for Jesus, he will leave you with more than you gave. When you step out and serve with Jesus, he will leave you with more than you gave. So these disciples go from having just little plates of dinner, and because they brought them what they had, they walk away with 12 full basketfuls of leftovers, y'all. Enough to feed them for days. Jesus is trying to teach them something here. Keep on going. The number of those who ate were about 5,000 men, besides women and children. Here's the thing. That verse 18, can you put that one back up there for me, that verse 18? Verse 18 says this, bring them here to me. And I want to talk to the people in this room who have been here for a little bit, okay? Just you guys and me right now. Matt came up 2 weeks ago and talked to you guys. And then Jake came up to you last week and talked to you guys. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, in the back, I stood in the back of the room, and if I'm honest, I heard as Jake talked about how if you want faith that grows, you can't do it alone. And it made me kind of like think, yeah, well, Jake, you're so good at community. You're so much better at community than I am. There's no way I can actually do that. I don't know if any of you guys have ever listened to one of our messages and thought to yourself, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I could do that. Maybe we're saying, hey, it's time to go love someone that's really hard. And you're like, Tim, you don't understand. There's so much baggage on that, and I can't love that person. Or you need to go get in community. You're like, dude, my best friend just moved across the country, and it's hard for me to even think of the word friendship right now. It's tough. You guys, here's what Jesus says right here. I think that the essence of what I'm saying there is we think in our minds, we think, I don't have enough. God, you say that you want me to live for you, but I don't think that I have enough. I'm not old enough yet. Or maybe I'm like, I'm a freshman and they're seniors. He's probably just talking about the seniors, right? No. Maybe you think to yourself, well, Tim, you're such an extrovert and you're on stage. You could probably tell me about Jesus, but I'm an introvert. I like Tumblr, like that's my scene. Like I can't possibly tell people about Jesus. That's not where I'm at. And you guys, let me tell you something. Jesus looks at them and says this, bring them here to me. In the history of things that wouldn't accomplish what it sets out to do, 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish would never feed a crowd of 5,000. Never. Never, never, never. But Jesus looks at me and says this, I want you to bring what you have. And that's your filling on your app outline. And if you're writing notes, here it is. God is calling you to use what you have. Not use what you will have 20 years from now. Not use what you will have 10 years from now. Use what you have today. If you want a faith that's yours, that becomes yours, you need to come and say, hey, Jesus, listen, man, I don't have much, but here's what I got. I don't have much, but God, I'm an introvert. I don't have a ton of friends. And like Minecraft is my favorite thing in the whole world. Jesus, this is what I got. I'm going to give this to you. Can you use it? And Jesus, I promise you will never look at you and say, yeah, but you know what? Pastor Matt wears Gucci all the time. And he's cool, and he gets along with everybody. You're not quite where he's at, so I can't use you nearly as much. That's not true. God looks at you and says, listen, bring what you have, and I'll use what you have. But the story of Andrew doesn't end there, and it's one of my favorite stories in the Bible. Let's keep going. Verse 22, immediately. Guys, the Bible flows together. This is a story. It says the 5,000 families were fed, and then immediately Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him on the other side while he dismissed the crowd. After he dismissed them, he went up to the mountainside by himself to pray. And later that night, he was there alone. And the boat was already a considerable distance from the land, but it was buffeted by the waves because of the wind against it. Guys, when my parents come out, they're from Texas, and bless their hearts, they're amazing. But when they come out to the ocean, they kind of get in the water, and they feel the water kind of go back, when the wave comes in and it goes back out. They're like, oh, Tim, be careful. The rip current's really bad today. And I'm like, oh, you guys are so sweet. Because they haven't had the experience, right? But then I got a buddy named Darren who's been surfing for 30 years, and I went to the ocean with him one time. We were going to go swimming, and he looks at me and he goes, hey, Tim, be careful. The undertow is really bad today. It could really suck you out. Fools, I stayed as far away from that ocean as possible because I knew that guy knew what he was talking about, right? Guys, when these fishermen, it says later in the story, they were terrified of the storm that happened, it was because this storm was so massive they didn't know if they were going to get through it. And then it keeps on going. This is a pretty famous story here. It says this. Just shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. That's where Jesus walks on the water. When the disciples saw him in the lake, they were terrified. It's a ghost, they said. And they cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, take courage. It's me. Don't be afraid. And then Andrew's buddy Peter does something incredible. Andrew's best friend Peter, who he grew up with, who he was with, Peter looks out and he says, Jesus, if it's you, would you just call me out on the water? Would you say that it's you? And Jesus just said this. He said, come on over here. And so here's what Peter does. And I love that Peter does this twice in what we talked about today. You see, Peter took his net one time, his security blanket. He took the money that he had, the thing that kept him comfortable, and he left it right here he left it on the ground. But right now he's about to take the boat where that water means sudden death for him, sudden drowning. He steps off of the boat. He steps out of the boat and he begins to walk towards Jesus on the water. On the water, y'all. Like, I know that sounds like maybe you've heard that story in class before, you've seen pictures of it on whatever. But guys, can you imagine being Peter for the first time stepping out and your foot not going in? You're just literally standing there for a second? That would be crazy town, right? So he begins to do this and step out and walk towards Jesus. You guys, I want to show you a pattern here. And if you want to write this pattern down somewhere, here's what it is. First, Peter left what made him comfortable. First, Peter left what made him comfortable. He had this thing, and it was going to be okay. He was going to provide for his family. He was going to be all right. He left what made him comfortable. Then, he stepped into an awkward moment. He stepped into an awkward moment because he had faith. He faithfully stepped into a moment where Jesus said, hey, listen, I need you to follow me here into this moment that may be uncomfortable. It may be weird, but I need you to step in. And then he did something even more incredible, guys. He stepped out of his safety and started pursuing Jesus. You guys, it says in the Bible, and this is where I look at you guys, and what I know the immediate thought is like, well, Tim, that's really cool that Peter did that, but he did that because Jesus was there. Jesus is totally fully God, fully man. So obviously he can do that with the power of God, right? Because he's right there across the lake. It says in the Bible that Jesus says, it's actually good for you that I ascend to heaven, that I leave, because I'm going to send this helper called the Holy Spirit. And this Holy Spirit is going to empower you to do greater things than even yet you have seen in this life. So greater things than seeing bread multiplied to feed 5,000 families. Better things, greater things than Peter walking on water. This is what Jesus says. He says, I will show you even greater things. And folks, can I tell you on a personal note right now, as I prayed for you guys specifically, Eastlake High School Ministries, this morning, I was walking through this message, and I said, God, what can I say to them? And he pointed me to this point in the message, and he said, listen, even greater things you will see if you step out of the boat. Even greater things you will see if you step out of the boat. Not the person up front, not the student leader over here, not the adult leader over there, not Tim. You in this crowd will see if you drop your net and step out of the boat. I promise you. You guys, I believe specifically, and I know this may sound weird, but this is totally what God showed me. I believe that you guys can see people healed physically. I've seen people healed physically in Jesus' name. It's an incredible moment. I've seen blind people see. I've seen people with broken legs, boom, suddenly healed again. My dad was someone, he was actually born with pigeon toes, which means they go in like this. And he had a pastor pray for him. And he said during that prayer, his feet went straight. He went to the doctor, and the doctor said, there's no way this is possible. This takes years to fix with braces. He said, no, he's just, all of a sudden they were straight. I believe that you'll see that. But can I tell you what I think you'll see even more of, even in the next year? What you'll see is, you'll see friends of yours that you think are as far from God as possible. I'm talking as far as that wall is from that wall. They are all the way over here, and God's all the way over there. They're selling drugs and doing whatever it is you think they could be doing. You're going to see those people walk across the room and come to know Jesus as their Savior and come to walk into full life, y'all. I believe you can see that. But it requires you doing something, y'all. It requires you taking the net and dropping it. It requires you taking the thing that you're comfortable with and embracing maybe the awkward, faithful moment and dropping that net, y'all. Because for some of you guys, and I don't know about you, if you're like me, I will oftentimes, I'll exchange this for something so worthless. I'll exchange Jesus for something so worthless. I've got these guys, and they're my middle school boys. I lead a middle school small group on Wednesday nights. And they're awesome kids, but they love the game Fortnite. And I know I'm going to talk about Fortnite. I'm so sorry. But they love Fortnite. We got a PlayStation 4. And I said, guys, what game should we get next? And they looked at me and they said, dude, we should get V-Bucks. So I know what Fortnite is. I've played it before, but I like to pretend that I don't so that they can I can give them a hard time. And I said, guys, what are V-Bucks? They said, well, they're like the in-game currency in Fortnite. And I said, so where you smash people with pickaxes till they die. Great family-friendly game, by the way. Where you smash people with pickaxes till they die. Do you get a better pickaxe with the V-Bucks? And they said, no. You get skins, man. And I'm like, what, do the skins give you armor, power-ups, whatever? And they go, no, man, you just look really cool. And I'm like, hang on. So I'm going to spend my real money, my real dollar bills, and I'm going to buy some fake money. I'm going to buy some fake currency where you can buy skins that don't even do anything but just look good on you, right? They were like, yeah. I love middle schoolers. And they were like, yeah, we love that. And I'm like, guys, I'm not going to do that. But guys, can I tell you what I do so often? Is that I get real self-worth in Jesus. Jesus calls me a son of the King. He calls me a prince. And you know what I'll do? I'll trade that real currency that I have, and I'll come over here back to my net, back to my comfort, back to the thing that was before Jesus, and I'll say, man, I'm going to go post this on Instagram, and if it doesn't get 100 likes within 10 minutes, I'm taking it down because obviously people don't like me enough. And guys, can I tell you what? That makes my social media look good, but man, it makes me feel empty inside. You guys, I'll trade. God says that when I come into his kingdom, he says it doesn't matter what you've done with who you've done it with, wherever you've done it. He said, listen, you are pure in my sight. You have the ability to stay free from shame. And here's what I do so often. I said, I'll let my thoughts walk away from that purity. And because it's fun in the moment, I'll say, you know what, God, I know you've given me that, but I'm going to take this thing right back up. I'm going to take up this thing right back, this comfortable thing, this comfortable habit. And I'll walk back into shame, and I'll trade what's real for what's fake. Y'all, anybody with me tonight? Can you give me like a head nod if you're with me? Yes, I'll do that same thing. Guys, here's what I'm going to call you to do tonight. I'm going to call you to do one simple thing. So I want you to drop the net, drop the security. What's holding you back from Jesus? I want you to drop that security, guys, and I want you to step into who Jesus is. I want you to step into who Jesus is, guys. There's a direct connection between growing and serving. Going to serve others, care for them, love on them. There's a direct connection between growing and serving, and you serve when you drop the net, when you leave it over there and you say, I'm going to come embrace what God has for me no matter the cost. I want to give you 3 quick things for your outline. Let's put these 3 up. First thing I want you to do is, guys, I want you to use what's available. You have something in you. You've got gifting. You've got friends that I don't know. You've got people. You've got skills. You've got things that God has gifted you with, and I want you to use those things. The second thing I want you to do is this. I want you to step out of the boat. I want you to step out of the boat. It's terrifying. It's scary to step out of the boat and onto the water. And then the third thing I want you to do is I want you to believe. This story ends, and Peter has one of my favorite moments. He's standing on the water, and he's slowly walking his way on the water towards Jesus. And then all of a sudden, he takes his eyes off of Jesus, and he looks right, and he sees this massive 10-foot crester coming right above him. And he gets terrified. And he stops believing for a minute. And he starts to sink and drown immediately. His feet go through the water. He starts to go down. And immediately, this is what happens. Jesus is by his side, and he grabs Peter's arm, and he lifts him back up. And he says, why didn't you believe? He said, Peter's like, I did. I was looking at you, but then this was terrifying. Guys, here's what I know in your life. I know for some of you guys who followed God for a little while, maybe you entertained the idea of it, but then something happened. This wave came and hit you, and you were like, there's no way I'm getting through this. Guys, maybe I'm hitting a chord for somebody in this room. I feel like I am, where something happened in your family, something happened in your life, and there was this huge wave that came, and you're like, I took my eyes off of Jesus, and I just felt like I went right back to my comfort. I went right back to the net. I ran away from him, Tim, and I'm ashamed to come back. Can I tell you what the Bible says? This is what my Bible says, is there's no condemnation. Jesus never looks at, just like he looks at Peter, he looks at Peter and says, listen, why didn't you believe? But he doesn't let him drown. He goes, all right, see you, man, good luck. No, he picks him back up. He says, listen, come back on the water with me. Guys, Jesus is calling you back to the water with him. He's calling you back out into that danger zone. He's calling you back into that. He's saying, listen, I want you to use what you have. Peter, even if it's just a little faith, the fact that you used it gave us a story that we will never, ever, 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 ever forget. Friends, I'm going to call you back onto the water with Jesus. Whether the wave has hit you, whether you've been holding your net all your life, I want you to walk towards Jesus. And Jesus says this. He says, all you got to do is call on my name. He says, all you got to do is call on my name, say, Jesus, I need you, and you're there. So here's what I'm going to do. Thank you guys for bearing with me tonight, but I've just got one more thing. I'm actually going to ask you, and I promise this ain't creepy. If you're weirded out by this, you don't have to do it, but I just want you to bow your heads, okay? Just because I want to give people a moment with Jesus tonight. Okay, I just want to give them a moment with Jesus tonight. All right, cool? So here's what that means. What I want to do is I'm gonna offer you a prayer that I want you to repeat. And if you're like, you know what, Tim, I've been running from Jesus for a long time. I know him, I followed him, but I've gone back to my nets. And in your head, I just want you to repeat this prayer. It's a super simple one, but it's just us calling upon Jesus. All right? I just want you to repeat this. Jesus, I feel like I've walked away from you a little bit. Maybe you can name an area of your life where you did to him real fast. But Jesus, based on what Tim is saying, you say that you're not mad at me. You say that you don't hate me. You say that you've never loved me any less, even though I walked away. And so, Jesus, I want to walk towards you tonight. And so, Jesus, I want to bring what I have. And it may not be much, but here's what I have. And right now in that moment, I'm going to give you 10 seconds. I just want you to, in your head, say, hey, God, this is what I have. Name it and give qualities about yourself. And if it's nothing, say, God, I'm living, I'm breathing right now. It's my life. Take 10 seconds to tell God what you have for him. Jesus, you're calling me into some rough waters, but you say that you're going to catch me there. You say that you love me. So Jesus, I want to follow you with everything I am. I want to see you move in such powerful ways that no one can ever convince me you're not real because I've seen you move. Jesus, I love these teenagers. And God, I love working with them. I love living in Southern California. I love hanging out and going to the movies with them. I love going to eat with them and running the leadership team. I love all that, God. But if I could give all of that away so that students would know one thing, Jesus, it would be that you love them, you don't condemn them, and you call them back up onto the water even when it's terrifying. So Jesus, what I want to pray is, God, that you would move in such powerful ways in these teenagers' lives. God, that you would help them know who you are so completely that they'd run away from their nets, they'd run back to you so hard that people cannot help but see you in their lives in a powerful way. So Jesus, we love you. We commit this night to you. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Boom, Tim turned around. I'm just kidding. Guys, just give it up for, I know I killed the moment. Give it up for Tim. That was a great, great message. And what I really like